By my watch, it's 2:34. And why don't we begin with the approval of the January 25th, 2012 minutes. The chair will entertain a motion. Dave, move, I'm sorry. So Dave moves, and Dale, would you do the second, please? Okay. So comments, corrections, deletions, additions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Julio. By the way, does everybody know each other around? I'm sorry, Dan, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
I have an abstention.
You have an abstentions. Okay, abstain. Dan Haley is abstaining. Does everybody know each other around the room here, around the table? I think so. Okay. So, next on the agenda is public comment. Is there any member of the public here who wishes to address the council at this point? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on in the agenda and we will ask the associated students, either Alex or Simon, to do the ethics check-in.
So I'm going to be reading from the Constitution of the Associated Students, which says that we, the Associated Students, Pasadena City College, endeavour to provide better student government, participate in shared governance, and develop good citizenship through social, multicultural, athletic, and scholastic activities. The only ethics policy that the students have is the Student Code of Conduct, which isn't really applied to shared governance. So the Supreme Council of the Associated Students is working right now on an ethics policy, which will help embody the qualities that we hope to embody during the current climate on campus, which is to ethically and responsibly represent students to the administration and to the Board of Trustees, and to further ethically and honestly present the facts and the issues back to the students to make sure that everything that we do is above board and for the best interests of our constituents.
Very good. Thank you. I was told that Gail Cooper was on her way down here, but the president's office?
I think she's talking with Dr. Van Hill.
Okay. We are at that point in the agenda to talk about standing committee membership. Perhaps what we'll do is give her another minute, and maybe we can go down to item 5, the second bullet. Associated students request to add 1 member to the Enrollment Management Committee. Maybe we discuss that?
I was hoping that this item would be a little bit more general because we actually want to add 2 students, but since we're Brown Act now, I'll leave it to the one and hopefully this can come back. We noticed that on the Enrollment Management Committee we only have 1 student member. We would like to add 2 further ones for now. We'd be very happy to have 1 and address the issue at a later time. I feel that it's important, especially given, even before now we thought this was important, but given especially now, students need to have a fuller voice as part of enrollment management and in fact in shared governance in general. And so I would like to actually move that we expand the committee's charge to include 1 further student.
Okay. Do we have a second on that topic? Dan, second. Discussion? Anybody have any comments on that? Okay.
Just a question. Again, just for clarity, you have a student representative right now.
Yes.
Chris Fennessy.
Yes.
So you're asking for 1 additional person.
Yes, and later we're going to ask for a further additional.
More.
Yes. And we have students ready and willing to take the position.
So, there's 1 representative now. I apologize, I don't have the enrollment management makeup or charge in front of me. Do you have that here? Okay, let me remind the group what the membership makeup is. And in fact, since we have copies of this, because Beverly is so good at what she does, thank you. We'll go ahead and pass that around. And this will be a reminder of how the committee is currently constituted. So I'll give that a minute to circulate, and then we can talk about this a little bit. So by reminder, the charge of the Enrollment Management Standing Committee shall be to inform the College Council on matters relating to course offerings and numbers of sections provided in accordance with planning priorities defined by the Educational Master Plan. So the membership, the two co-chairs are the President of the Academic Senate, the Vice President of Educational Services, the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Instruction, the Vice President of Student Learning Services, currently a combined position which Dr. Bell is currently holding. The three faculty representatives representing the specific areas of basic skills transfer and CTE, the two at-large faculty members appointed by the Academic Senate. There are three deans, one representing basic skills, one representing transfer, one representing CTE. And then we have a classified Senate representative appointed by the classified Senate. And then there's a single associate student representative right now. So the classified has one representative and the AS has one representative. And the AS today is asking for one, potentially two more. And I'm assuming it's because of what's happening right now and they want to make sure you've got an additional voice.
Actually, no. This was something that we've been looking at for a little bit of a while. In fact, we're examining the memberships of all of the standing committees because there are a couple of other ones which we feel should be expanded. I won't go into it again. We have an agenda. But we've been looking for a little bit while even before these happen.
Okay.
So this is part of that.
So I guess the question is, should we just attempt to deal with the issue of 1 versus 2 now and just save the associated students the need to come back again? I don't know if that's the preference of the group or that isn't even what the motion asks. But
the reason I would say not is simply because the agenda was very specific and went asking for one member.
Okay.
And if it had been a little bit more of a general item, I would have suggested we do exactly the same, but I want to be cognizant that we're following the Brown Act as best as we can.
Okay. Not entirely sure that that's necessary, but that's okay.
So again, you're just asking for a greater voice in the Enrollment Management Committee?
Well, yes.
Yes. I think from our perspective, considering that it's covering and looking at classes, we feel it's more than pertinent to have more associate students members or more people appointed to that committee from the associate students because of that.
Ben, would you do me a favor and see if you can get Gail to come in, please? I guess she's with Dr. Van Pelt right now. Okay, so...
Just
yes,
so
sir.
that the committee is aware that right now the Enrollment Management Committee is looking at the enrollment management policy, which does establish priority or delineates how priority registration takes place on the part of students. And we are also looking at changing the policy to give greater guidance to deans and other administrators about how to either reduce or add class sections accordingly to the needs of students based on transfer, completion of degrees, completion of basic skills and such.
Okay. Because I would like to get an opinion on this 1 versus 2 thing. I know it says what it says, but it just seems like we're operating a little too stringently, but that's okay. Yes, Dave?
Did we take a vote stating that we would run this under the Brown Act?
We did.
We did. Okay. Gail, you're about up here. I'm asking a question as the chair. Item 5A. Someone give an agenda that she could see.
No.
Oh, here.
You know, as a committee, we agreed to operate under the principles and the guidelines of the Brown Act for at least 6 months. And under item 5A, the second bullet, we're considering the associate student request to add 1 member to the Enrollment Management Committee. In reality, they really would like to add 2, but because this agenda said 1, there's a question on the table, and it's my question, it's nobody else's question. Everybody else is happy with the 1. But I'm just wondering if we could just, if it would be acceptable to talk about 2 at this
Can I
point.
see your agenda?
You have, oh,
Oh,
I
there you
thought
go.
I have the,
oh, no, look, yeah, look at the agenda,
thank
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry.
It's 5, second bullet.
Okay, under the Brown Act, any action to be taken has to be agendized 72 hours in advance,
Uh-huh,
or the public does not have notice of the action to be taken.
right.
So unfortunately, because you specifically agendized, add one member, you are limited to adding one member by way of action today.
Okay,
You
so,
can, it's AS request to add one member.
okay,
You really can't be discussing a second member
okay.
because it's not on your agenda either.
All right, well, I suspected that, but I wanted to sort of tell people that by doing what we're doing, it sometimes makes it a little difficult to deal practically with some pretty simple issues, and this is just an example of that. Okay, so we have a motion on the table for one additional member of the enrollment management. We have a second, I think Dr. Haley was the second for that. So, ready for the vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. So we will do that.
So, just for clarity then, will we be receiving a name soon from the associates?
Yes, very soon, by next Wednesday.
Very good. And then the next meeting of the Enrollment Management Committee is not this coming Monday, but the following.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So now we're going to go back up to item 5, the Planning Party Standing Committee membership. And in the last couple of meetings, we've been having some discussion about additional members of that committee. Do you have the makeup on planning and priorities? And we've had to temporarily table that discussion until some discussions that were taking place between the district and at least one of our collective bargaining units was taking place. So I asked our general counsel, Gail Cooper, to come in today to speak to the status of those discussions to the extent that she can.
There really aren't any discussions going on. There was an unfair labor practice charge filed with the Public Employee Relations Board by issue concerning the makeup of the various committees of the College Council. And in particular, the issue is whether or not the individual classified units should have each a seat on each committee. There are a number of aspects to the charge, and we have filed our response to the charge. The charge is to a large degree theoretical only because of the actual makeup of the committees. So, and PERB does not deal with theoretical situations, but our position, of course, and I believe very well supported, and anyone would like to see the response is welcome to, but that the makeup of the committees as they stand is fully compliant with the law. The statute that governs the issue speaks to not the units, but the members, the classified members, having representation on the committees, and provides how that's to be done. And because of the way that your committees are set up, where the classified Senate is allotted a certain number of seats, and in many instances with one of those seats being approved by your units, the classified Senate is represented both in terms of in its own right as well as by the collective bargaining units. But in any case, issue raised certain issues with regard to their appointments, and those have been responded to quite directly. And as I understand it, PERB takes a number of months to decide whether or not they will in fact issue a charge. So where it stands now is that the unfair labor practice charge is filed by the party, in this case issue. The district has responded with effectively, here are the facts, and we don't believe there's any basis for a charge by PERB. PERB then decides whether or not they will issue a charge or dismiss. If they dismiss, that's the end of it. If they issue a charge, then there's actual briefing and further responding done. In many cases, at PERB, by the way, following the response by the district to a charge, there are further proceedings before PERB even makes its decision in how the charge is framed. I realize that sounds very hyper-technical, but that's the most I can tell you at the moment, because unless and until PERB makes a decision about if there's even a basis for a charge, we don't have an answer. They're the ones that decide. So issue has set forth its position, we've set forth ours, and that's where it goes. Okay?
Yeah, as you know, CSEA also requested to enforce SB 235. I am still waiting for an answer from you on that one. That's been several months. And our labor rep also requested that also be enforced. And it has nothing to, it was because of the classified senate, that's why SB 235 was in place. So it's not
And where
that
is that?
because we have members on the classified senate, that when they appoint it, they're appointing it for the classified senate, not the unions. SB 235 says the unions can have the right to appoint their own people.
Well, that's where we disagree on what the statute says.
Can you please give me that in writing so I can go ahead and file my PERB charge also?
You're welcome to see the response.
Okay, so can I have a response, please?
You're welcome to see that, yes.
Any other?
else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gail, I didn't understand the part where you said the issue was theoretical. I thought we have a very real situation here.
Well,
How is it theoretical?
It's theoretical in part because issue in fact actually has a seat on every single committee, and in many cases, more than one.
Well,
So that's why it becomes it's a theoretical point to a point. I mean, the issue that's being discussed is the interpretation of a statute. And the statute is frankly poorly worded. So, but when you come with a charge, you have to demonstrate that you, the complaining party, have an actionable claim. And in this particular instance, issues complaining we weren't allotted the seat, when in fact they were allotted the seat. So that's the problem, part of the problem.
I still don't understand how that's theoretical. I think it's a very real charge. I think the separate unions are saying we should have a place there too. That's a real situation to me.
In the case of the PERB charge, only issue is saying that. But there are a lot of legal issues way before we ever get to that point. And this is strictly, there are a number of, let me explain it this way. The committees and the college council are specifically designated to deal with non-collective bargaining matters. It's in the verbiage, it's actually in the MOU that expired. It acknowledges that prior to the period of the MOU and for all time back, that the committees dealt with non-collective bargaining unit matters. And because of that dichotomy of non-collective bargaining unit matters as opposed to collective bargaining unit matters, that begs the question, the college council and its committees do not become a second table for negotiating. And that's where the statutory interpretation issue comes in, is that the statute is not designed to create representation by union, because then you effectively create another bargaining unit. And as long as we're only dealing with non-collective bargaining unit matters here in this forum, then the issue of unit-by-unit representation is not paramount.
I hear this is your legal defense here, but let me ask you this. If the other unions formally requested membership in the committee were denied and then sent in the charge, would that be a more real and less theoretical charge?
Like I said, that's the very last issue of the entire PERB charge, but I'm not going to sit here and advise someone to go file a PERB charge. They're certainly free to do what they want. They have their counsel, and I deal with them all the time.
And if I can remind the body as to what sort of led us to this point. When the President of the Academic Senate, the President of the Classified Senate, the Chair of the Management Association, and the President of the Associated Students, along with, at the time, the Interim Dean of Educational Services and then the Vice President of Educational Services, got together to consolidate the 35 to 40 task groups, task teams, focus groups, ad hocs, whatever we had going. The idea was to reconceptualize and reconfirm our college council process, our governance, our consultative process, how the bill becomes a law and how we create college policy. And then under the College Council to create a number of standing committees that would help the College Council do its work. So in the aggregation of those 35 to 40 groups, we came up with these 9. When we were developing the 9, we developed the charge, and then we developed the membership, and then we developed the term. And in developing the membership, we were cognizant of the fact that from a shared governance AB 1725 point of view, we had the academic senate, we had the classified senate, academic senate representing faculty, classified senate representing classified, management association representing managers, associated students representing students. And that all categories of individuals from a shared governance point of view fit within those categories. And then we had an executive committee member there. So that was one of our premises. Another one of our premises was to try and create committees that were going to be of a size, from a membership point of view, that they could function and function effectively. So again, this group made those decisions. Then they brought the standing committees one by one to the College Council, and the Council then discussed each one of those standing committees. And then when it was deemed appropriate by the Council, adjustments were made. And then voted upon, and that's where we were. But the line was to, as our counsel, Ms. Cooper, has said, the line was to keep collective bargaining and shared governance apart, understanding that even though we have issue in CSEA, they are represented by the classified senate.
Yeah.
Even though we have, I understand. I'm just putting it out there because we're, for people who might be watching this on video as this goes public, and I want to try to make sure everybody understands how we got to where we got to. So, but I understand the concern, and that's why it's being processed through whatever the process
Let
is
me
right
add
now.
something else too, which is some consideration was apparently given based on an objective look at this, the makeup of the College Council and the committees, to giving some degree of balance between the respective shared governance groups. And that if we were, for example, to take the position that has been taken by issue, that would cause an imbalance to the academic senate, because the number of seats that are allocated seem, as you look objectively on, to strike a fair amount of balance between the respective groups. So if you begin allocating additional seats to classified based on the number of units, you would then augment that side of the equation disproportionately. And I will point out to you, by the way, that if you recall, that CSEA was at one time the only classified bargaining unit, that POA and issue are both local collective units that have splintered off, and that if theoretically, back to theoretical, if the classified staff tomorrow decide to be represented by 10 collective bargaining agents rather than 3, that would require then, under this theory, 10 new seats to be added. And this could go ad infinitum. Whereas the faculty, on the other hand, have a single bargaining unit and will remain a single bargaining unit, because it doesn't seem to lend itself to be able to splinter off. So some consideration in the past has been given to the balance. Some consideration needs to be given in the future to the balance. And again, with respect to the historical reference that the classified staff traditionally, and a long time ago, were represented by 1 and then eventually 2 and now 3 different unions.
No, that's not true. Issue was independent. They were just not unionized. They were never part of CSEA. And campus police was part of POA, then they came to CSEA as a separate chapter, then they went back to POA. Okay? So I just want to make that
I appreciate that.
clear.
And so the core issue in my mind is that we are trying to separate AB 1725 shared governance from. So in the case of classified senate, I neglected to mention the confidentials before, but they are represented by the classified senate in the sense that they are classified employees. The Police Officers Association is represented by the classified senate in the sense because they are classified employees. In other words, under our shared governance rubric, the representation exists.
And thank you, Dave. Let me say, I stand corrected again. I wasn't here, obviously,
Yeah.
as you know. But what I do say is true, though. Nothing stops the unions from dividing into further
as many
unions.
times.
Well, her board does.
Pardon me?
Her board does.
Okay.
Well,
Her board made
the
the
point again is that the scheme is designed to strike a balance between the academic side of the house and the staff side of the house. And that balance in non-bargaining unit members would theoretically be destroyed. And that's something that should be avoided, in my view.
Okay, I saw Simon and then Ed.
Something that Anna May mentioned was that this has all come about because a memorandum of understanding expired, and I'm assuming that's a memorandum of understanding between the bargaining units and the classified senate?
No,
No.
it's
No.
only, is it,
It's not a memorandum of understanding between the unions and the Senate. This memorandum was between the unions and the district. The Senate had nothing to do with it.
Has there been consideration to some sort of memorandum of understanding? Because I've noticed that the California Community College Classified Staff website has an interpretation of SB 25, which suggests that for shared governance procedures, a memorandum is established between the classified senate and the bargaining units on how shared governance operates. Is that something that's
Well,
being
there's another
investigated?
term that they use too, it's called delineation of duties, which is a lot of the community colleges are going to. I haven't heard them call it an MOU, and I'm standing to be corrected, Gail and Dave.
I can send the link to whoever, I just found this by Googling something.
Ed?
Well, I was just going to point out that at the time that we constituted the committees, that old MOU was in effect, so we were operating under that
Correct, exactly.
MOU back then.
All right, so, I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, but the MOU was in place between us and the district to allow the classified senate to appoint people to the committees because of SB 235.
Well,
Okay, so I just want to get that on the record.
On the record.
And now that the MOU has expired and we are not going to renew it, at least CSEA is not going to, that's why we want to enforce our rights.
okay, and again, we obviously differ on what the statute says.
so,
That may require a judicial body or an administrative body to make a determination. No one in this room has the authority to bang a gavel and say, I've decided what it means.
so I think, Ed, go ahead.
So an inquiry, for the sake of argument or clarification, if it were determined that each classified bargaining unit had a vote on the college council, the subcommittees of the college council, enrollment management and all the rest, would have to be reconstituted as well? Because
statute does say
the
committees.
membership of those subcommittees was negotiated by the academic senate, the classified senate, and those bodies that we've mentioned. I'm not aware that all the subcommittees have to have representation from all of the unions, or is that what you're saying as well?
Well, it's not, it may not be all the unions, because a lot of times, like for CSEA, we really doesn't have anything to do with enrollment management, so we wouldn't really need somebody on there. But the sustainability committee, we may want to be on, because that has to do with facilities or planning, facilities planning. We may want to have a seat on that. So it may not necessarily be all of the committees, but any committees that we wish to have representation on.
And that would be the stand of CSEA, but issue may take a different
Issue may take a different-
right? And so too the Police Officers Association.
Theoretically, they could, but I want you to know that that is our reading of the statute. We have taken the position that the classified unions should jointly select the person best suited to represent them on a particular committee. Because as Dave points out, not every unit has an interest in being on every committee. And again, because there are additional seats allocated to classified senate, the other unions may be present anyway.
Right.
So this really, in a number of cases, seems to be a distinction without a difference because the representation ends up being present anyway. Let me also say that with regard to the MOU, it speaks for itself, but as to those committees that were established and approved while it was in effect, we've seen no reason to revisit those. It seems that the unions may, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, taking position that all that went out the door when the MOU expired, whereas there was no end cap put on the effectiveness of those committees. And that's something, again, that would have to be decided.
All right, so what I'd like to take some chair privilege, if I may. I think where we are right now is the matter is being something in another area. I hate to use the word discussed, handled, something is happening in another area, and we need to await that before we before we can take any further action. I think we've provided some clarity on where we are right now, Dave. We've tried to get you the report. You can get a copy of the, or at least
Of the response.
the response, or, so that you
Yeah,
can.
but I still want to, we requested to implement SB 235, CSEA has.
And we believe
But
we
I have not received a letter from you, one way or the other, stating your position.
Okay, well, the point is
That's what I'm
that
looking for.
there's a response, and Gail indicated that you could have a response. I don't want this form to turn into that issue. That's another issue to be dealt with in another place.
I agree.
So we'll do that. So unless there's anything further on the topic, I'd like to go ahead and move the agenda and keep going. Yes, Alicia?
Actually, in the words of Dr. Rocha in our committee meeting for our union meeting, he said that PERD will handle the situation and make the decision, and Dr. Rocha doesn't make any difference how many people are on the committees representing.
Okay.
So that was his words to us.
I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, I certainly didn't hear, but I know that he's encouraged participation
Yes.
in the committees, but that's really a different issue from the voting part of the committee's function. And,
Okay, well,
and I
those
don't
are
know,
just-
and forgive me, I don't know if it functions in response to a question about committees versus the college council, if the college council approves each thing that the committees do, because the college council certainly has a
Well, I'm just
representative.
making a comment of what Dr. Rocha mentioned, so
Right.
we just need to let her make a decision on this issue.
Exactly, and then we'll go from there, because at the end of the day, I think what it's really about is how can we make sure that each standing committee as effectively and efficiently operates as it needs to, whether it has 5 people or 105 people.
As long as everything's done equally, it's fine.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on this topic before, Al, do you want to say? Oh, okay, good. Thank you all. So let's move on. Gail, thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through an enrollment management report that I gave to the Board of Trustees. Some of you have seen this, so read a book or do what you want to do. I think many of you have not, but I'm going to try to get through this quickly so we can get to some discussion on the issue. Basically, there we go. Okay, so this is a 6-year overview of what we call the number of sections as it relates to FTES, or full-time equivalent students. Full-time equivalent students is the funding model that funds the community college operation. Each FTES is worth approximately $4,600 to the district. So, starting at this number, the funded FTES. This year, the state of California provided us FTES, or $4,600 times $19,634 to help us with the operation of this college. Okay? An FTES is roughly 3.86 sections per FTES. So for every FTES that we get, it supports about 3.86 sections. That's the average FTES per section. If you look up here, you'll see that our FTES has dropped steadily to where it is right now at $19,634. And if you were to go back to 2004-05 and 2005-06, you would see that at one point the college had as much as 23,000, I think it might even been closer to 24,000 FTES. There was a time when the state was funding community colleges in a much larger way, a much greater way than it is now. So you can see that the FTES from the state continues to decline. The difference between the FTES at census and what we actually got paid for is this 955 number. And then this is a projection. We are not yet done with the spring semester. We will hopefully be less than that when we're said and done, but for now, that's where we're projected. Now, summer, fall, winter, spring, total for the year. Okay? At one point in 2006 and 7, we were 5813. We went up to 5963. In 2008-9, we're at 6,006. Notice how far over we were our funded base. In the 5611 in the 2009-10 year. Notice how far over our funded base that we were. So for several years now, the college has been operating in a way that it's been more or less self-funding a number of the sections that we have been over. And there's some discussion we can have about that. But basically, that's where we are now. Summer, fall, winter, spring. You'll notice that at one point, our summer was at a high of 586. We now, this past summer, we're down to 369. The fall has stayed somewhat consistent, and that's because the fall and spring are typically seen as the foundational aspects of what we do from an enrollment management perspective. And the winter, you can see, has dropped pretty significantly to 271. The spring ended up at 2,333. Actually, at census, there might have probably snuck in another 5 or so sections from what Crystal told me this morning. And we'll find out. There's reasons why. Well, there's reasons why. And it's better than we've done in the past, because in the past they've snuck in like 30 sections or something. So 3's not bad or whatever. But anyway, we'll see how all that comes out in the wash. So in general, what you see here is a declining funding base and a declining number of FTES, and the impact it has on the sections by each particular term. Now, as we develop our 12-13 Strategic Enrollment Management Plan, we had to keep in mind a couple of things. One, that the state has already told us that we are going to be taking a 1,150 FTES reduction for 12-13, assuming the governor's tax initiative does not pass. This is the initiative that is on the November ballot. With that in mind, that is going to require us to reduce sections by somewhere between 350 to 400, and it could be higher than that by 100 or more sections, depending on how much of prior year ills we are trying to clean up. Okay, and that's something that Crystal and I and Dr. Bell, we're trying to get our heads wrapped around, and we're going to, probably by the middle of next week, we'll know that. But we're pretty confident that we're going to, at minimum, we're going to have to cut at least 350 sections in order to bring our number of sections offered commensurate with the FTES funding that's provided by the state. So, in other words, the money that comes in will only fund the FTES that we need to offer the sections that we offer, as opposed to offering sections where we don't have the money to pay for them. Okay? Now, one of the things that we know is that if we are more efficient with how we invest our FTES, we can get more students served. So in other words, it's not about sections, it's really about the number of students served by each FTES. So what can we do to take that 3.86 number, which is the average number of sections per FTES, and get that up to 3.95 or 4 or 4.1, so that more students are served with the same amount of FTES revenue. Now, strategies include more large group instruction. Strategies include more types of online applications. And when we talk about large group instruction, we talk about the use of technology. We're talking about maintaining academic integrity, maintaining academic quality, and providing the level of interventions that are needed, whether it's whether it's college assistants, whether it's additional faculty in a co-teaching mode, whether it is technology interventions, whatever it might be, to make sure that in an LGI situation, large group instruction situation, or in an online situation, that the academic quality and integrity of what we're doing is being maintained. We also know from reading Horizon reports and everything that we're seeing is that increasingly students want more and more virtual type instruction when they can get it. Not every student, but more and more students are looking for instruction that does not require them to come to the brick and mortar location, but they want more options. So, but the point is to try and get more enrollments out of the existing FTES dollars that we have. Now, as we go forward here, I'm going to speed this up now. Typically, the college has been engaged in what everybody calls the rollover scheduling model, which is you roll over fall to fall, spring to spring, summer to summer, and you start there. and you don't necessarily think about it from a strategic point of view as much as you might need to. And when there's plenty of money and FTES to go around, you don't have to. You can really focus on breadth and you can do what you need to do. But when the supply is less, you have to be much more strategic about how you're investing those dollars. So, going forward and working with the deans and our faculty, it's going to be based upon more and more what we call the completion agenda, what everybody's calling the completion agenda, which is degrees, transfers, CTE certificates, job placements. In other words, what does it take to complete students so they actually accomplish more of these goals in a more timely fashion? So that's the direction. Another one of the directions is that we're looking at a lot of data these days. Crystal and her team have provided the divisions student course-taking behavior data. They've done that broken down by the specific division and the courses that are taught in that division, in terms of the top 10, for example. And they've also done that in relation to the Associate of Arts, Associate of Science, and what's known as the AA transfer and the AS, Associate of Science transfer degrees. And those are the degrees that are tied specifically to Cal State LA. It's the SB 1440. It's the, what do they call it? It's the curriculum major, what's the term that they use? Transfer curriculum major, TCM. It's called transfer curriculum major. That's the other name for SB 1440 stuff. Presently, the college has 7 approved transfer curriculum majors. There are 9 more in the hopper right now. Armando Duran and many others are doing an incredible job of working with the divisions to get those majors developed. So we should soon have 16 or 17 approved with another 5 or so to go. And in fact, PCC is, from what I'm told from somebody recently, that we are almost leading the pack in that. We're doing very, very well. So anyway, we'll have these AST, AAT degrees that will guarantee our students that if they come through PCC, they take those degree patterns, they will automatically walk right into Cal State LA as junior status, no questions asked. And there are other Cal States that hopefully will be able to spread that to now. So that's very significant. So that means that we have to build schedules that support these things. The next thing that from a data development point of view that Crystal and her team are working on is what is it, from a course-taking behavior, what is it that we can show the deans that relate to the CSU and IGETC general education transfer patterns. So again, they build their schedules that support those patterns. Now, this is just an aggregate of 3 years worth of data that really doesn't say anything, that you can't basically say that this is definitive in every way. But this is basically the top 25 courses that students take over a 3-year period. This is, from English 1A to Theater Arts 7A. The data shows us that this is what students are taking. Now, it's gonna vary from division to division and major to major in terms of what happens within the division. So this is not the end-all and be-all, but it does give you a general sense of what's happening here. And if you look at these courses, many of them are the IGETC General Ed CSU transfer courses. Many of them are the Introduction to courses. Many of them are the traditional lower division undergraduate first 2 years of college courses. And there's about 4 or so in here that are the basic skills courses as well. So those are what so the deans will look at this information. They'll also look at the information by their divisions, and that will help them to build their schedules and also tie to the completion agenda. So our goal is going to be to mount as strong a fall and spring schedule as we possibly can. And the bulk of the reductions have to be achieved, the 1,150 FTES, has to be achieved over the summer and the fall, because if that initiative doesn't pass, then we know we're going to be $5 million less next year funding. So this year, in aggregate, I think we lost $11.5 million. Next year, if the tax initiative doesn't pass, it's another $5 million. And in fact, there's something that came out from the California Community College League yesterday that sort of implied that because the state is looking at a $6.5 billion problem for 12-13 as opposed to the $3 billion problem they thought they had. That even if the initiative passes, nothing is sacred next year because they got to find a $3.5 billion. So all that says to us that we've got to get the 1,150 out of the summer and the fall. But if it does pass, and we do, and we are made whole, then we can add sections back winter, spring, or however we end up doing what we end up doing next year. But rationally and from a fiduciary responsibility, if you will, we really need to try and get those out sooner. Who wants to say something, Crystal? You look like you're...
I think it's important to remember that we're talking about it, they're saying this is an upfront, and they call it a workload reduction, which we all know we don't work less. But
Yeah.
the 2.8 that we took in the middle of the year isn't even considered a workload reduction. They just said we're not giving it to you.
Right.
They just said we're not giving it to you. Period. It's not a workload reduction. It's already been planned for. Too bad. It's not part of your FTS apportionment funding. It's just 2.8 million we're not giving you.
Right.
And I think it's important to remember that because they can do that at any time.
So that's exactly right. So it's a double-edged sword. Not only is it 19,634 minus 1,150 equaling 18 whatever, which is a permanent workload reduction until somebody decides it's no longer permanent and they build up the workload again. But the other edge sword is what Crystal just said, which is, and they can decide just not to pay us money. They can decide you're going to get $2.8 million less. And on top of that, they can delay payment, right? What's the term that we use? They can defer payments. And I think from what last I heard, they're going to defer like $22 million of money that they owe PCC is going to be deferred until like next October. So, you know, we've got a funding problem, we have a cash flow problem, and we can't exacerbate the problem by further offering sections we're not getting paid for. And then on top of that, midway through the year, they take money from us. Okay. Yes.
I actually have the email from Scott Way in front of me right now. Do you mind if I just read next to that? Way we all have an idea.
Sure.
So, along what you just said, in other words, if the LAO's forecast materializes, the governor's proposed 2012-2013 budget is $6.5 billion out of balance with or without the tax measure. And this assumes $2 billion come to the state's coffers in the next 18 months from Facebook going public.
Right.
So there are a lot of assumptions in what the state is going to be taking in. Just like this year, when we expect what led to the 2.8 million cut this year for us, which was the expected increased revenue in property tax.
And the Facebook going public is the income tax that the state collects by all those people cashing in a huge way, the capital gains and what have you. The state gets a piece of that initial public offering. So how's that for budgeting? All right, so without getting into it, it's a long, because I want to make sure everybody understood this, which is why it's as wordy as it is. But the bottom line is that Dr. Dell and the deans, working with Crystal and Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Dave and that team and myself, as well as the Enrollment Management Standing Committee of the College Council, the Planning and Priorities Standing Committee of the College Council, and the Budget Resource Allocation Standing Committee of the College Council. We're working collectively to develop a schedule that absorbs what we need to absorb and that gets us where we need to be. And then we make the comment that should the governor's initiative pass, at the time I did this, we thought we'd get the money back, but from what Alex just read, who knows? Now, this is just the top 50 courses by enrollment. I didn't even show this to the board. But I just wanted to show it to everybody else because basically what it shows you is that at 25, which I think was here, it begins to level off. The next 25 begin to level off. Okay, so in general, so that's pretty much where we are. And I thought it would be good for this group to hear that presentation and then to open it up to any discussion if anybody wanted to share some thoughts. Simon.
How will the graduation fund fit into the plan for section reduction?
Good question. For every $5,000 that the graduation fund collects, we can mount an additional section. So the idea of the graduation fund, is everybody familiar with what the graduation fund is, by the way? The idea of the graduation fund is to solicit private donations from people like us. Sounds like a PBS commercial, from people like you. But, you know, from us, people like us around the table, the outside community, to bring in additional revenue to mount additional sections, to pay for the additional sections. And we're using the number, the state has an average of about $5,300 per section. We're using the average of $5,000 per section. In truth, a section can cost as low as $2,500 to $3,500 and as much as $10,000 to $12,000 depending on the faculty member who teaches that section. Okay, but we use the average of $5,000.
And the number of units and sections is worth the
And
number
the
of
number-
lecture and lab hours.
That's correct, exactly, because not all sections are created equal. Yes, sir.
Do you have in mind which sections you would prioritize for that fund?
Well, going back to the completion agenda, and Dr. Bell is here and he might want to speak to that, but going back to the completion agenda, the thought would be to fund sections that help students to complete. So they might be the GE pattern ones, they might be some of the top 25, they might be the ones that in the natural sciences area that we know we're really short to try to keep moving people along, that kind of thing. Dr. Bell, did you want to say anything more to that?
You want me to do it from here? Oh, camera's on.
Yeah. You can run, but you can't.
Well, yeah, what the graduation fund will do is it's going to support what we're going to try to do when we mount our primary schedules fall and spring next year. We're going to look again, as Bob suggested, all those data of test taking, class taking that students have done. We're going to look at the data that we have from students at this point on educational plans which are in place, which really tell us, as students have indicated, what their plan is for completion for the next 2 or 3 years that we have it. And use those data to form what classes we need to mount into a fall or a spring class schedule to satisfy students' need. My guesstimate is we're not going to be able to put enough classes in place with the workload reduction to satisfactorily meet all those needs. The graduation fund, as Bob indicated, will be additional dollars, so as we get those dollars amounts for $5,000, we can then mount additional sections, and those sections again will be ideally focused on classes where students need to move toward that completion agenda for degree, transfer, certificate, and job placement. So that's how they work together. Simon.
So the Associated Students has made an immediate, authorized an immediate donation of $1,000 to the fund.
Thank you.
And we have earmarked a further $4.5, which is pending authorization, which is, and pending specifically discussion and clarity over how specifically the money will be administered, and then further ensuring that at least the initial decision or the initial discussion of which sections get offered through it is done through some sort of shared governance procedure that involves the Associated Students. So as soon as we get those, I guess not assurances, because that sounds more like blackmail, as soon as we get those details ironed out, then the Associated Students will be donating a further $4,500 and probably more.
I'll translate assurances as a detailed plan,
Yeah.
and that is exactly what we're going to work on, and exactly the model we're going to
And we would appreciate that.
And
What's this here about spring forward or something for students?
I'll get to spring forward. Let me finish, because that's a little bit different discussion, but I
Yeah.
can talk about spring forward.
Ed, did you have a question?
But okay, just for clarity, is it safe to say that you are going to probably fund more sections like Psychology 1, Sociology 1, so on, rather than say some of the natural science classes, chemistry, biology, and so on? I mean, those are more expensive, right?
I don't know if it's safe to say that. I mean, if you talk about just pure economics and which classes are the least expensive to offer, yeah, clearly those lecture-based classes are less expensive than the natural sciences and the lecture lab classes. However, the recognition is that particularly with our STEM majors, we're not going to be able to move away from the Chem 22s and the natural sciences. So there's going to be some kind of natural equilibrium we're going to have to reach on how we're going to get those classes done. Going back to Simon's comment, that's where the input from the students in this process is going to be incredibly valuable in how we do that.
Okay, and finally, these are these will be 12-week classes, is that correct?
Well, the spring forward one will be 12-week, and maybe we'll just let Dr. Bill, since he's got the floor, to talk about spring forward. Now, you can count this as part of your vice president's report. How's that?
So what am I talking about now?
Spring forward.
Spring forward.
If you can
Okay.
kind of discuss what that's about.
Spring forward. We created a plan called Spring Forward, and it's a play on words, ladies and gentlemen, in the spring for students to be able to go forward to completion in the spring semester. It is in response, obviously, to the reaction we got from a number of students, and not just students, but primarily our students, on the impact of the section cuts we did, the most recent section cuts we did, where students were registered for class for the spring semester, and within a week and a half or 2 weeks of the start of the academic period, found out that those classes had been administratively canceled. So what we're looking to do is to work with those students, and there was a total of 428 students who were directly impacted by those cancellations. And we're looking to put classes back into place in a 12-week intersession model, if you will, which will begin on March 26th, and will conclude at the same time all regularly terminating classes in the spring are scheduled to conclude. And we're going to look to put classes in which will directly benefit those students who were impacted, with the focus again being on the completions. So students who lost classes due to cancellations, who are close, who will have been able to complete because of those class cancellations, we're going to put those classes, look to put those classes back into place, notify those students of that. I'm going to ask those students, which may sound like a dumb question, but I'm going to ask those students if they want to take those classes. When I get a resounding yes, then what we're going to do administratively is we're going to do what's known as batch loading the students into classes. So we identify the classes, the sections, and the student agree to participate. We're going to administratively register them, if they will. So they won't have to go to the system, use ad codes or any process. The students won't have to do anything except go to class and start in March. Now the focus again is going to be on the students who are directly impacted by the cuts, and we're going to focus on those students again who are closest to completion. I'm going to get there, Justin, I'm hurrying up. We recognize that we're not going to be able to accommodate every student, and what we discovered out of those 428 who were in fact impacted by the cancellations, many of those students had only one class this semester, and many of those students are beyond close to completion. Some are as many as a semester or 2 semesters away, 4 to 8 classes shy of completion. So we're going to try to focus again on the students closest to completion, and we're also going to hopefully be able to benefit some of the other students who are close to completion this semester, who in the normal course of registration, if we hadn't canceled anything, would have still been on the waiting list for 1 or 2 classes they needed to complete this semester. Hopefully in the mounting and development of our spring forward classes, we'll be able to benefit those students as well, so we'll get more students total towards completion. So that's the goal. We're in the process of identifying what those classes are now. I hope to have more specifics on that by the end of the week. I'll then sit with the deans to determine what those classes will be, to begin to recruit the faculty who will teach those classes, again with a March 26th start date. We have a spot on our website which is called Spring Forward. If you haven't seen it, it's on the website, and as we develop the classes, the times for those classes, all that information will be loaded there, so students and all of us can stay as up-to-date real-time on how we're doing that. Again, it's going to be a 12-week intersession and
The completion as well. And Dr. Lebo and her counseling team and the grad check team, Homa and Betsy, are actually developing a list of people that are close to completion. So we're going to try to treat those who are as close to completion as we can identify and move them on their way as quickly as we can with whatever resources we have. We don't want to waste a single seat.
And if I can do an extension on that, we're going to try to do that to the fullest extent possible with Spring Forward. What we're also looking to do is to work with students who need to complete before they formally transfer, which will be fall 2012. 2012?
Yeah, that's
2012,
yeah.
okay. I don't even know what year it is anymore. 2012. The majority of our students are focused to complete at the end of spring to be prepared to transfer to their receiving institution at the start of fall 2012. What we're going to look to do is for those students who we can't benefit from this Spring Forward, to try to build those classes into a summer class schedule, get those students loaded into classes in the summer, So when they complete our summer session, they'll still have all those requirements done and in hand before they go to the receiving institution. And I'm going to prepare letters for all those students, should they need it, to send to their receiving institution so that their receiving institution will know student could not get the class in spring 2012. Student will be enrolled in the class summer 2012. Give them the date that is due to complete in the summer 2012 for us, and send that on college stationery to every campus so the receiving institutions will know by the time the student was scheduled to register for classes there as a junior fall 2012, they'll have those requirements complete.
And so what this further also suggests is that whatever number of sections we mount this summer will again have this completion agenda very tightly wrapped into its planning and development. So again, this is that term strategic enrollment management. We're trying to get a lot more strategic about what it is that we do than where we've been in the past, which we should do anyway. Good times or bad times, we should be doing that. But it's particularly important in the challenging times.
So basically, the Spring Forward is strictly, it's not going to be open to the general population, is that correct?
It will not be open to the general, and I say that because, one, we're not going to be able to satisfy the need for the general. The focus is again going to be on those students who were directly impacted by the cuts, and then students who are currently enrolled close to completion in the spring. So those are going to be the targeted students we're going to look to benefit from this. And my guess, my assumption, and I think it's going to be the reality, is once we meet the needs of all those students, we aren't going to have sufficient classes for the general public. So now I've gotten a number of emails. I think I've gotten 600 emails from students who have asked those kinds of questions. And so what I'm going to do over the course of the weekend is I'm going to respond to every one of those students individually at their email address. So don't send me emails over the weekend because I'm not going to be able to talk to them. I'm going to send an email back to every one of those students because here's that level of confusion. I appreciate your asking that, Dave. Some students are thinking if I needed 4 classes this spring, I can get them all in spring forward. Others are saying it's going to be open to the general public so I can start early in the spring behind this. Others are thinking if I need 1 class to graduate, I can get it. So there's a lot of understandable confusion, if you will, because it hasn't been clarified enough. So I'm going to clarify for every student to send me an email. As those emails goes out, that will also be information that will upload into the website. So if students go to the website or individuals go to the website, it will then hopefully explain it more. So what is now a probably 2 or 3 paragraph introduction to Spring Forward on the website, as it goes more real time, we'll have all these ideations of explanation of where we are across that. So hopefully individuals can access a lot of up-to-date information via the website. And obviously if you read it, there's 1 contact name and 1 contact person and 1 contact email for questions, and you're looking at them.
Right.
So,
and just one, I know at the board meeting they were talking about people that only needed 1 class and they can't get into that class because it's already booked. Are you guys looking into that to try to resolve something like that, to maybe add that person into a class?
yeah, that's exactly what Bob got at. The first ideation of request, first priority, if you will, for lack of a better term, are going to be those students who were directly impacted from the cancellations who are close to completion. The next group we're going to consider is that group you just described. So we're going to try to get as many students near completion completed by the spring. And my disclaimer to this is it is not going to be a panacea for everyone, and it is not. It is an imperfect solution in an imperfect situation. It is not going to satisfy everyone's request. And so I hope we can get all students to understand that if I need, for example, if I'm a student and I needed 4 classes to complete in the spring and I'm on the waiting list for all 4 of those classes, the Spring Forward intercession is not going to be able to meet your need. However, as we start talking about mounting classes for a summer class schedule to get you completed by the time you will be a junior fall 2012, the receiving institution, that's where we hope to be able to get as many of those classes in place so students can complete those in the summer.
What about the future? Because I know, when I was going to Chafee that, if you don't get right there, even though you need that 1 class, and you can't get it, you have to take another class or else you lose your priority registration. Are we looking to say, okay, well, if this person only needs 1 class, like in the future 2 classes, and they can't get that class to get them into their class?
through enrollment management, and I will defer to Ed if he wants to talk more about this, we're looking at now the possibility of a realignment of our priorities for registration. And so that, again, we start lining our priorities for who's first in line to get classes more in line with those completion agendas. Because, for example, the 428 students, ladies and gentlemen, who were displaced from the, excuse me, the class cancellation, there's one individual who lost a class and has, I think, 198 units on task here. Not that that's unimportant, but again, if a student with 198 credits registers for a class which is critically in need for a student who has 50 credits or 55 credits and needs that one class to graduate, that's where we're going to look at how our registration priorities are structured now through a shared governance process, talk about how we may want to realign those priorities so it begins to address what you just described.
Yeah.
And again, in the Enrollment Management Committee, though, that's one of the issues that we are looking at, how to basically make the registration process, the timing of the registration process, more just, so that we are enabling students who are making progress to move forward, whereas those that are not making progress are, well, they'll have to realize the importance of why they're not making progress, come in for counseling, and make sure that they are indeed on a reasonable, logical education plan that works for them.
And again, the new technology that our new administrative information system will bring to the table will make this process much less cumbersome than it is now. In fact, it'll make it much more possible than it is now, because we don't really have the technology to support us in the manner that we need for students to help create their own educational plans that counselors can review and or to do degree checks and all of those types of things that make this kind of thing much more feasible than anything we have right now. Simon, I think it's right now.
Just a couple of things. One of the things that we had a town hall on Monday, and one of the things that came very clearly out of that, and even though students didn't realize this is specifically what they were asking, was more flexibility in normal closing numbers. And that's something that would help if, why can't we fill a room to room size and getting more seats? Because if we're talking about getting students through an agenda, one or two more seats in a section may do that. And so at least allowing for, just a second, allowing for more flexibility, at least down at the local teacher level. One of the other things that I would like enrollment management to look at is the add drop date system. When you have students who, the drop date is far beyond the add date, and students who are still desperate for that class, really want to get in, would be willing to show up for 3 weeks, even if they might not get in. But they're told, you know what, you take to add it only 2 weeks in, but then suddenly half the class is gone because of attrition, because they finally realize what's going on. So, and that's a problem, because then you've got a half-empty class that could be serving students, and there have to be solutions to these problems, and I'd like enrollment management to consider that, and consider the smarter registration priority system. And I hope that the strategic enrollment will also kind of do what the college is doing right now with Spring Forward, which is directly contacting students that are close. And because my fear is that right now, if we were to simply look at a list and assume that a certain student needs a class, they might not need that specific class, so we may end up with a schedule that's a little better. But you know, I would still like to see some more direct outreach to students who are close to completion to see what they specifically think they need, and maybe they think they need the wrong thing, because that could be another counseling issue. My final point has disappeared, so
Did someone have, yes,
Just fine. Just for information, the normal closing numbers, or what's also referred to as maximum class size, is something that is determined by faculty through the curriculum process.
Yeah.
So just so you're aware.
It's something that we would like you guys to look at.
And there are student representatives on CNI also.
They'll be bringing it up too.
yes, Daniel.
I'm sorry, were you finished?
I can't.
I want to start a new topic. Bob, very good presentation, but I'd like to visit one part of it when you're talking about maximizing the number of students per FTES. I can understand that philosophy, but what I don't understand is the recent curtailments of large group instruction, where teachers are told, no, you can't teach this. Large group instruction is, to put it bluntly, you're getting more bang for the buck. You teach 200 students, you don't get 4 times your salary, you get just a little extra stipend.
Right.
So it seems like you're saying one thing, we've got to try to maximize our money, but there seems to be another agenda that says, no, we're cutting you.
Well, so let me respond to that. You're absolutely correct that for a brief moment in time, late Whitney Houston, I guess. Sorry about that. But that for a brief period, we did suspend the LGI because of operational internal matters and because of a lack of control over how the LGIs were being implemented, how they were being supported, how they were being approved, etc. And we had a real problem with that. We now have created an operational plan, a procedure that operationalizes LGI, and each dean has that plan, and now they have been asked to work with their faculty. It goes 2 ways. Either the faculty member can go to the dean and say, I'd like to do an LGI, and these are my reasons per the plan, or the dean can go to the faculty member and say, I would like you to consider doing an LGI for the following reasons. So, yes, there was a time, a very brief time, when we said no more LGI until we sort this out, because it was quite a difficult thing to sort out. But that period has come and gone, and now we are there. But the college, the dean, the vice president of instruction, will not approve an LGI unless the proper interventions are tied to that. Because that was another problem we had with some of the LGIs, is that the faculty member was not receiving the level of support that she or he needed in order to maintain the academic integrity and quality of that course. So now we think we've got a procedure in place that speaks to all of that, and we have, Dr. Bella said to all of his deans, bring them forward if that's what you want to do, and we know that the top 25, that there's some opportunity there if we can provide the technology and everything else that we need to do it correctly.
One other point. You mentioned online classes, and I would hope that we would approach it very cautiously.
Yes.
The literature I've read, it's very mixed on the effectiveness as opposed to in face-to-face. And I have a feeling that most of the literature that's talking about how great it is being funded by software companies that want to sell their products. So I would hope that we would be very careful about introducing that.
You're absolutely correct, and at the end of the day, it's up to the faculty member and the division, but primarily the faculty member as an individual to make that determination. But I can tell you this, Vice President Cable and myself, the two who are most responsible from a vice presidential point of view of supporting that, we will be very cautious to lend our support to anything that we do not believe has the proper level of interventions to make certain that the students have a successful experience. And that's just the bottom line. Vice President Cable, would you like to?
Nothing else there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Can you clarify, obviously you said that you yourself, the Vice President for Instruction, will make the determination as to whether LGI has the right level of intervention. How do you make that determination? Is there a set rubric? Is it just a...
Yeah, there's a policy procedure which we'd be happy to bring to the next meeting here, or even send out with the minutes if you'd like, that very clearly articulates the answers to the questions and how that has to occur in order for Dr. Bell to have enough to assess whether or not this can be done properly. Alex?
That's the same memorandum, that was done in the memorandum, I know the Board of Trustees received that memorandum, so is that in that same memorandum?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it may have been tweaked up and everything, but it's quite prescriptive, and it's very and basically what we've done is we've said to our deans in particular, you have the major level of responsibility to, before it even gets to Dr. Bell, to make certain that in fact it is supported the way it needs to be supported.
So in other words, just to clarify, there is a way that a faculty member that wants to seek an LGI will know exactly which hoops to jump through. There's not going to be a question of, well, you didn't get it right, I thought I got it right. It's very clear.
It's very clear. As far as we can tell, it's very clear. And if there's some things about it that need to be further clarified, we'll do that. But we definitely want to support the concept of LGI, particularly in the environment that we're in right now. But we want to support it the right way. Okay. I have 2 other things that I was told by our council fit under the strategic enrollment management presentation and discussion. I looked at Simon here, so he'll check me on this. In may I move the agenda to the next item, folks? Okay. In Dr. Roach's February 22nd piece to all PCC faculty, staff, administrators, and students, titled Actions in Response to the Budget Cuts, there are two specific requests that he makes to the College Council. And again, I was told that I could speak to the Center of Strategic Enrollment Management presentation because this came out obviously after the agenda was posted. Okay. It says, I therefore ask the College Council, comprised of faculty, staff, and students, to convene on February 29, 2012, and to add this to its agenda, to develop a recommendation for an emergency plan of public advocacy that may include travel to Sacramento for upcoming Board of Governors meetings, to join in March on the Capitol in Sacramento, period. We must have maximum and united effort to join with Chancellor Scott in the effort to roll back recent cuts. So again, to be clear, he wants us to develop an emergency plan of public advocacy, and he wants us to join in the march in this coming month of March on the Capitol in Sacramento. Okay? We must have maximum and united effort to join with Chancellor Scott in the effort to roll back the recent cuts. So I would like to propose, ask for volunteers to be kind of a working group to put something together that would respond to this. Did we have discussion on that point? Or any volunteers?
I'll just
So
put it right
March
now.
5th, March and March?
Yes.
And I know that the students are going, right?
Yes, we do have people going. In fact, there will be a meeting tonight to make sure that everything's in line with students. I would just like to say, I would actually like to volunteer for the working group just to make sure we can get something going.
All right. Who else would like to volunteer?
Well, I'm not going to volunteer, but I'm going to volunteer someone else. The ASPCC Student Lobby Committee, it is our lobbying group, and I know that a couple of other members there would be incredibly excited to work on this, and I asked them to come, but I don't think they really thought it was on the agenda, so they didn't.
All right. Is there anybody here who would be willing to take the time and go to Sacramento and participate since it's March 5th? Dave's on. And does anybody else have interest in time to do this?
I'm volunteering.
You're not volunteering?
No. The Senate doesn't have any money, so.
No, well, I'm assuming that Dr. Van Pelt and Dr. Roach will find
we
the
can
funds.
organize some efforts on behalf of the faculty to advocate. Maybe not in person, maybe not on that date, but some resources.
So we've got, so what if we did this? What if we suggested that we have the Academic Senate see if they can find 2 people who'd be willing to participate in the march. Maybe ask the Classified Senate to do the same thing. Okay? Yes?
Would we be driving a van down there?
I don't know how, I think they're flying, I think this is.
We're flying.
Your person with AS is flying. I think
I think your person is
AS has the money though, right, Rick?
Wouldn't that be quite expensive? Wouldn't it be less expensive to take the van?
I don't know.
Well,
This is, the Associated Students has budgeted for 90 students and 10 staff. So I don't know if all the staff positions have been filled yet. I know a couple of people have volunteered. I'd suggest contact Scenario do so in the flea market.
okay, well,
to find out.
but let's back up one step. So if we had one representative from each one of our shared governance groups, I want to be true to this, but I also want to be true to what Al is suggesting, which is we can't spend money we don't have if we don't need to. And I think that's part of what your underlying comment there, I think.
So we go up for the day and come back?
Sounds that way. So we fly up and be part of, basically showing the PCC support of Chancellor Scott and the community college system.
That will be this Monday, and the students will be on campus. Will be meeting on campus at 3 a.m. So that we can actually fly out in time.
And just to be clear, this is being funded by the Lobby Fee Fund, which is a $1 student representation fee that every student pays upon enrollment, which is essentially goes for this and for other lobbying efforts on behalf of students.
All right, so because it's the 5th, which is Monday, we have the Academic Senate President here, with the Classified Senate President here. We have the Management Association, 2 representatives here. Confidentials are here. Can we get agreement that 1 Academic Senate, 1 Classified Senate, 1 Management? Yes.
I'm going to draft a letter to all faculty and see if we can get a volunteer. And I'll send it out probably tonight.
Okay, so we'll get
I'll let you know by tomorrow.
So Academic Senate is going to come up with 1 person. Management Association is going to come up with 1 person. Classified, sounds like they've got their person, Mr. Krause. Confidentials, whatever, if you can find somebody, okay,
I'll
that's
sure
fine.
put it out there.
All right. Now, then, with this information, could you go back and ask Carrie if you've got funds for 4?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's been a bit of a laughter about it. It's a bit of a joke, but this is a very important issue for the students. Because this is our main lobbying protest event, and so it would be fantastic if the campus community as a whole really did take the time. I know we all have busy schedules. I know we all have busy lives. To take the time out to support the students and stand in solidarity with us up there. So
Okay, and I think that is very, very important. And do we know if any board members are going? I'm looking at my colleagues back there, or Dr. Roach, anybody, or, okay.
One is going, I
One.
believe Dr. Mann is going, and I believe Dr. Y is going.
Okay, so we'll have trustees there, and our Director of Public Information and Government Relations will be there as well. Okay, very good. All right, so, and it looks like, with great appreciation to the associated students, they even have the money to fund the flights and that kind of thing, so that would be great. Okay? All right, so that was number 1. Oh, Dave, yes.
Well, when will we know about this?
I will go straight to the office after this and send out the email to the college council.
Okay. And what time is the flight leaving?
We have to meet at PCC at 3 in the morning.
I think knowing Carrie, it's a 6 a.m. flight or something.
It's one of
Are
those.
you cold?
It's about a 6 or 7 a.m. flight.
Yeah, it probably would be the earliest flight to Sacramento, is usually around 6
Right.
to 7, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
It's out of Burbank, I suspect,
Yes.
right?
No, Los Angeles.
Oh, it's out of LAX?
Because of the number of people we're taking,
Okay.
it's expanded.
Okay.
Are you going to have a shuttle from here to the airport?
Yes. That's why we're all meeting here.
Okay.
So the flight is a very early in the morning flight, we'll shuttle people
Yes.
over, okay.
Over to the airport, it sounds like. Okay.
So you can do it now.
The Bain connectivity,
Yeah.
this is March 6th.
I need that.
March 6th? Okay.
Published.
Then,
We're definitely going up one day.
March 5th is the date of the flight.
Yes.
And this is different then. This is another advocacy day.
okay. With appreciation, so by consensus, we all agree to that, right? And then we'll work out the details. Okay. Then the second item is, moreover, I asked the College Council to review the proposed resolution of the Community College League of California in support of the November tax initiative, and then to bring forward an endorsement recommendation to the Board of Trustees for action on March 7th, which is going to be tough. So the only way for that to happen would be to convene a special meeting of the College Council to bring the initiative forward, so we could look at it and vote on it as a group, or to send it out electronically to the members of the College Council, and then have folks respond in the affirmative or the negative in that way.
That seems like a good idea.
Okay, so why don't we, I'll work with Beverly, we'll get our hands on that, and we will send it out to everyone. And can I get let's think this through a little bit. If I can get a motion that says, assuming we have a majority of the College Council that votes in the affirmative for this endorsement, that we have permission to tell that to the Board of Trustees. Can I get a motion to that effect? Or Simon, you look like you're breathing heavily.
I'm having a Brown Act heart attack. We agreed to it. I don't think it's fair for us to be making a decision by email consensus when we have decided to open ourselves up for public input. I think given that it's an important thing, I'd have no problem with sending the email out in advance and having the materials out in advance so that whatever special meeting we call would be quick. But I do think it needs to be take place in an actual forum because we did agree to be bound by the precepts, and that's a very clear one.
Okay. So, anybody have any comments to Simon's Brown Act thoughts?
That's what I was going to say, is that I don't think that we can actually commit to anything today because it's not really on the agenda. We're going to have it on the agenda.
Well, I was told by council that it was close enough under the topic of student enrollment, but all that is fine. So why don't we do this? We could convene. How many people could convene at 8:30 on Tuesday morning for 15 minutes? 8:30 to 6 for 15 minutes.
8:30 to 6?
I'm sorry, on March 6th at 8:30 in the morning.
In this room?
Yeah, let's assume in this room unless we hear otherwise.
I have a class at 8:50, but it's 15 minutes exactly.
Well, I think, and so what we'll do is tomorrow we'll get this initiative out to everybody, and we will agendize the meeting to vote on this single topic, you know, and for this tax initiative, and then we'll get the group together.
I think that would be the wisest course.
Okay. So, with that in mind, I think we're good on the two issues that Dr. Rocha had raised that I was able to put in under that agenda item. So now we are at the Vice President's report. So these are brief, and we're going to start with Dr. Lastimado, if we may, please. Just come up to where Bob is, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Well, I'll just talk about three things that is going to eventually come forward to the College Council. In fact, some of you are on those things I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about first the college's comprehensive professional development program. There's a campus-wide committee that started last year, September, in developing a comprehensive program. Some of you, I think, are involved. I know Ed Martinez is, and I think Gary Potts and Deborah, they are also. Currently, we're working on the policy and procedures. That policy and procedures, after it goes to the executive committee, they'll eventually come here for approval. So we had our last meeting, not last meeting, we had a meeting today, and we talked about the policy procedures. We're still trying to polish it up a little bit more. But eventually, the College Council will be asked to also weigh in and approve, is that the right word, approve the policy and procedure. The other committee is the Campus-Wide Diversity Committee. That committee is running parallel to the Comprehensive Professional Development Program. This committee also is a campus-wide committee, and we're working also on policy and procedures for the college. The college does not have a diversity policy. It has an affirmative action policy, but it doesn't have a diversity policy or procedure. So we are developing one. Eventually, over time, hopefully before June 30th, it'll come here to the College Council also for approval. The other one is the Human Resources Advisory Committee that I also started here. The HR Advisory Committee consists of constituent members from other constituent groups. Right now, it's a standing committee. They're the eyes and ears for human resources to help me and advise me as to how we can provide better services, better HR services to internal customers and external customers. The task that they're working on right now is the hiring policies of classified faculty and managers, etc. And we're having a meeting next week. We get to see the first draft from these constituent groups as to what those policies are to look like and procedures. And eventually that is going to also come here to the College Council for review and approval. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Lastimado? Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned about the health and welfare committees. Any progress on that?
Okay, I learned that there was a benefits committee that was in existence and became dormant for many years, or several years, I don't know how long. And I was thinking of resurrecting that thing, but right now, myself, Dr. Van Pelt, and Gail Cooper, we're trying to collect some information from King and Associates. And when we get those information, those kind of information as to how we can, and this is just bad speaking, how we can maintain the maintain or improve our services at a lesser cost, then we will convene the committee then. Because right now, we can convene the committee, and I don't know if there's anything we could do really or target on to be productive. So we've already met with Keenan Associates about 3.5 weeks ago, and they're working on collecting those data for us. It takes time because they have to go to our carriers, Blue Cross, Kaiser, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, we're working on it.
My concern is that you're still working with Keenan Associates. The group was actually exploring other options,
Right.
but it sounds like you're actually locking us back into Keenan.
No, they're the ones that we're in contract with right now. So that's why I'm using them. I mean, eventually down the road, if this benefits committee gets resurrected, yeah, we could take a look to see if we want to still go with Keenan. But kind of giving you an update, that's where we are right now. We're out there asking them to bring data. And then maybe at that point in time, they will put the benefits committee back together. Okay? Okay. Good question though, thanks. Ben?
I'm sorry, I haven't
Yes,
been
ma'am.
aware of a diversity committee before. Are there students in that?
There might be on there's subcommittees. So the faculty has a campus diversity subcommittee. The classified has a campus subcommittee. The Managers Association, Tunisia Bell is the one that represents them, has a subcommittee. And I'm not sure if they have students, and I think the faculty might, I'm not sure. But I can check.
Well, the Associated Students has its own diversity committee, and we're just saying this campus-wide one, we would probably like to have representation as the group comes together.
So, yeah. You could be your own subcommittee rather than putting a student on this board. You could be a subcommittee per se and be part of that whole campus whatever what's the credit action. Yeah, just let me know. Okay, because it's open, not open and open, but open. And if the student government wants to have their own subcommittee, absolutely, you can be part of the campus.
Just a clarification that it is the Academic Senate Shared Governance Committee that's working on a revision and update to the faculty hiring policy.
Right. Yeah. Right, and on the Human Resources Advisory Committee, you have a representative on that committee that is bringing that forward. Okay, any other questions? Good, thank you.
Thank you, Judge Pasquale. Vice President Cable.
We had a meeting this morning and kind of went over a number of projects that we're working on in the Information Technology Services Division that really involves the entire campus, a little over 70 projects. The only thing that, and I can certainly answer questions about anything you want to ask about technology and what we're doing, but the one report that I will give is we seem to always talk about the administrative information system, so why should today be any different? Part of the process, as you will recall, and I reported to this group some time ago, that we went through a request for qualifications process. We had that closed on January 31st. We had 5 proposals, vendor submittals for that, and we selected 3 to come out to campus. There'll be for the weeks of March the 26th, April the 9th, and April the 23rd, there will be vendor demonstrations from these 3 different organizations. The first organization, Campus Management, which will be probably the week of the 26th. Then we will have Oracle demonstrating their PeopleSoft product, and Datatel, who actually bought, they have 2 products. They have the Colleague product, but they also bought the Banner product. And we will actually be having the Banner product demonstrated as part of that process. 3 long weeks, demonstrations going the entire day. It will involve the entire college community. They will be open. We have secured a location for that. Again, we will publicize all of this within the next few days in terms of schedules, and it will demonstrate everything with respect to functionality that the college community has been very forthcoming in putting together a lot of the functionality that we would like to see as part of this process. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to get us through April so that we can finalize a decision in May, get a contract in front of the board, hopefully by, well, I would prefer June, but I suspect it will there will be more negotiations than I would like, but so certainly by the latest of July, so that we begin implementation in the summer. So, and we are looking, due to the state of condition and the needed functionality that we need in our new administrative information system, we want a very aggressive implementation schedule, and it's going to entail a lot of work, and I will talk a lot more extensively about what that's going to entail and how we're going to go about doing that at a later time once we're very clear with whom we will be working from a vendor perspective. But we have governance process, I say governance, we have implementation team process and all of those mechanisms that can really come together once we make some of these final decisions. But we're still on target, and we will continue to be on target. Any questions? Yes.
Is there going to be free computers from the vendors to, persuade us?
No.
That's what you did, yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, Vice President Cable's here, I actually don't have a question, more of a comment. We've been relying very heavily on the PCC web team. And they have done, because you remember we had a meeting with them at the beginning of the semester, and they've done a fantastic job in being the best lifeline we could have had with our website, with making sure, with responding to just general PCC website concerns. It's been fantastic. So they do a really good job, and I want to say thank you to you and to the web team for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, let's go with Vice President Van Pelt.
Okay, there are a couple things. Obviously, people are interested in the budget for some strange reason. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, because I've mentioned this to any number of different groups. To the Board of Trustees meeting last Wednesday, to the BRAC meeting last Friday, to the Administrative Managers meeting yesterday. But here's the bottom line, is that this year, there's a grand total of $11 million for the cuts. That's about roughly $6 million that we'd already planned for and taken into account when we adopted the budget in September. $2 million, which we budgeted for, is the mid-year automatic trigger cut. The additional almost $3 million that is the February surprise, that totals $11 million. Next year, we're expecting roughly $5.1 million in cuts. Plus, we have to make up the $1.3 million of the sleight of hand that we did with the dental fund. So that's about $6.5 million. That means that between the 2 years, that's about $17.5 million off of a base of about $120 million. So under any circumstances, that's unbelievable. That's a 15% cut over a 2-year period. That means specifically that it cannot be business as usual, and that whatever we do from this point on is painful. We've kind of trimmed through the fat. We've done that over the last few years. In fact, we started that rather a long time ago. At a certain point, it involves cutting through the bone, which means basically amputation. That becomes very painful, but it means that we have to be realistic in terms of where our priorities lie. And one of the things I do want to clear up, because the amount of misinformation is truly staggering, and I don't think there's any question as to why that's true. But I do want to clear up one very important point for everybody to understand, which is the distinction between section cuts, FTES, and enrollment. And it's important for people to understand that FTES is only important in terms of our revenue stream. The state gives us $4,564 per full-time equivalent student. That is the only reason, up to a limit, which they call the cap, or the workload. So they will give us that amount of money up to, and it's $19,600 right now?
$19,634.
Okay, that is the limit that they place. That is the amount of money they pay us. That is the only reason why FTS is important. It has no bearing in any way on any expenditure. Okay. On the other hand, sections has no bearing on revenue. It is the only way that we expend money, because when we put on a section, it costs us money. Okay, so it has nothing to do with FTS. The reality is that in the perfect world, you can go 5,000 and 10,000 over on FTS. That's not important ultimately. What is critical, because that's on the revenue side. Okay, what you end up doing is you end up having to cover those students on your own dime. Past the cap is on you. Okay, on the expenditure side, however, it becomes absolutely critical in terms of sections. Sections cost us money, FTS does not. What is essential to understand is that the metric that we should be using is enrollments. How many seats are available for students? Because the truth is that if we were to be able to offer unlimited FTS and have unlimited FTS, and if we were to be able to cover that through sections, what you're going to find is that the enrollment number can stabilize, right? So if we have, and I don't know what the enrollment, do you know, Bob, what it's like something like 80,000, I suppose, in the course of a year.
I'll give you the number in a second here.
It's really the number that we need to be working on, is 80,000 enrollments. If we offer the same number of seats to students, but we do it with fewer sections, that reduces our expenses while absolutely not reducing the service that we're providing to students.
We currently, for the spring semester, overall credit enrollment snapshot is 67,300 students.
Okay, so in the course of a year,
enrollments.
how much is
Look
it?
at the seats.
Yeah.
And that's in the, right next to the section.
Right, and we're 99.2% filled right
Go
now.
back over to the left-hand side where. next
Well, the
to
head count is
Keep
22,084.
going. Farther.
Oh, the sum,
The sublimit,
the sum is 67.8.
that's the number of seats we have.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than enrollment.
That
So
is the key number.
67,800.
We don't focus on that number nearly enough.
Right.
That is the number we need to focus on.
So
Because the truth is that sections, and when I was teaching, if I took 4 or I took 8 more students, it was positive on my class section, not negative, and I didn't get paid another nickel. Okay, you can increase the service level to students by doing that. So when Dan was talking about LGI, LGI is truly, could be, a very good program if it's administered properly. Because that is precisely how you can do what we need to do, which is to lower our expenses while increasing service to students. So if we can focus on that number instead of how many section cuts are going to occur, that is an utterly meaningless number in the grander scheme of things. Because when you look at the sections that were cut, the average enrollment was 9. Okay, well that's another number that doesn't get out much. It means that they were under-enrolled sections. We need to be offering the correct sections, the ones that the students need, and we need to be offering them in the volume that they need them. I mean, that's truly not rocket science. So that's one point. I also wanted to, and I don't want to beat this dead horse either, but with the U building, there is monumental misinformation too. And let me just do it this way. If anybody has a question about the U building, because I think that this is another area that's not rocket science. And I explained it at the board, but I can explain it now too if anybody wants. But if everybody's clear on what the issues are with the U building, then I don't need to take up anybody's time. So if anybody has any questions on that or anything else, Dan?
Could we see the report that declared it unsafe?
Yeah. Well, the Faculty Association made a copy of that. It is a monumental report. It totals about this big. They didn't, by the way, give it all back to us, which is somewhat of a problem. And it's a very technical report. The essence of it is that in the correct earthquake, the U building does not meet current seismic standards. And what's important to understand is it was built 40 years ago. In the meantime, the building code has shifted rather dramatically. After the Northridge earthquake, there are people who think, actually, believe it or not, that the building was condemned. Okay, the building was not condemned. If it was condemned, we wouldn't be there. The structural engineers told us that with all due speed, we need to move out of the building. We do not have the money to rebuild the building. We do have the money to move out of the building. And that's why we've already moved health sciences in the Student Health Center, and it's why over the summer we're moving the Natural Sciences Division out. We will lock the doors and the U building will be a thing of the past until we have money to demolish it. By the way, the asbestos removal alone is $2 million prior to demolition. So, you know, for people who are not familiar with how the economics work with facilities, I think that's probably one of the reasons why the misinformation has gotten out, because they think it's just such a simple thing to strengthen the building. It is not. It has problems structurally from top to bottom. Yeah.
So is it correct to say that this year no money will be spent on asbestos removal or demolishing the building?
We have not spent a nickel on asbestos removal for the demolition of the building. The only asbestos removal we've done is, for instance, put in a projector or it's, no.
So Rick, it's fair
We
to
are not
say,
spending any general fund money in any way on anything having to do with the U building at all.
so it's
Nor
fair,
have we,
it's
For
fair to
this-
say,
Sorry, for this year or for the foreseeable future?
ever.
yeah, it's fair to say that, I think it's fair to say that once
General
that,
fund money is what I'm talking about.
Yes.
yeah.
We have not spent anything, we will not spend anything.
So it's fair to say, I think, that once natural sciences vacates, we're going to put a fence around the building.
Well, or we just lock it, we'll put a proverbial fence around it.
Right, and then it'll be locked down and that
We
way.
will not have anyone go into the building.
Right. Now, the forum, though, is not part of
Forum
that.
is not a part of the U building.
Right. So the forum will remain intact and in
Absolutely.
business.
The only thing that we have done is we have spent capital outlay money, less than $100,000 in architectural design, only because in order to ask for state money to replace the U building, we have to have a design. So we've only spent money in order to seek state funding for the replacement. And by the way, the replacement is on an emergency basis, so that we rise to the top of the list. Okay? Yeah.
If there's any money remaining at the end of the year, like they did last year, is it going into capital outlay? So general funds going to capital outlay that way, therefore funding for the U building.
Well, you know, in the last few years, what the unused funds at the end of the year have largely gone into technical and technology. So that has not gone into the U building.
But it's gone into the capital outlay where
Yes.
money has been taken out for the U building.
Okay.
In an indirect way.
Indirectly.
Okay.
So the answer is that we're going to work with BRAC in developing a policy of exactly what formula we can use to do that. The only way that Dwayne gets to upgrade the technology is through the capital outlay fund. Otherwise, we'd have to cut everybody's budget in order to make room in the general fund in order to make room for technology upgrade. So the answer is we're very grateful that over the years PCC has been very conservative fiscally in order to allow for this process to continue, because that's a one-time expenditure of money. But we're going to work with BRAC on developing an exact formula of how to do that from this day forward. That help?
Okay, anything else for Dr. Van Pelt?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bell, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? Okay.
No more hot seat, huh?
For the purposes of our audience on video, Dr. Bell said no. Okay. As far as educational services are concerned, because of the lateness, I'm not going to spend much time repeating much of what we've been talking about. Obviously, we've been very engaged in enrollment management. We've been engaged in some of the shared governance activities. One of the things that is on our enrollment report, which Crystal and others are finalizing, is an uptick in our non-resident credit enrollment. In other words, our revenue is up. We are roughly 200 students. We have roughly 200 more F1 visa paying students this spring than we had last spring, which is like a 1.8% change. In other words, the revenue coming into the college paid for by the F1 visa students is increasing, thanks to the good work of a number of people who are working on that.
But that also includes our out-of-state students.
Right. So it's F1 visa and out of state, exactly. But anyway, the good news is that revenue enhancement model that we're putting into effect is helping out.
What's our current number of out-of-state or international students? What's that?
The head count is 1,489 students at the moment. And that represents 5,626 enrollments at the moment. And that's a 1.8% change over where we were last year.
Percentage-wise, that's about 3%.
Percentage-wise, that would be, we've got 21,600 head count right now, so what is that? 4%? 3%? Something like that. Al?
Bob, are we concerning ourselves with those F1 visa students that are not able to get into classes and thereby not being considered full-time students?
I know that because of the F1 visa requirements, we are definitely working to make those particular students whole as they identify themselves to us.
My only concern is that they're not aware of the need and the importance of identifying themselves, and they get kind of cut off.
Well, if anybody has any of those students, they should be sent to the International Student Office, to MEN. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I thought I went through, but I'm not.
Yep.
Real fast, to answer that question, they are being made aware, if they're not aware, they should be now. We contacted international students, and any F1 visa student, international student is obligated to be in 12 units. And so any of the students who were impacted by any class cancellations, international students have contacted them. And Dr. Oliva and the counselor has done a very good job of getting those schedules whole, so it's not as large a number as I originally thought. Any ones who are still there, we will get them in the 12 units. We're obligated to do that.
And I will, thank you. Okay. One other thing I think I definitely should mention is that we are putting the finishing touches on the midterm accreditation report, which will go to the Board of Trustees this coming board meeting for them to approve its transmission to the Commission. We give thanks to at least a dozen really hardworking people, but particularly to Dustin Hanvey and to Crystal Kalras, who have done the real heavy lifting on the reports thus far. Crystal and I were in with the President, presented him the draft about an hour ago, and we anticipate that we'll be working into the night and tomorrow as we work our way through this. Yeah.
Just with the greatest respect, I'm sure the report's great. Has anyone in Associated Students seen it? Because I know that I've been appointed to the steering committee for months now, and I haven't heard anything about what was happening.
Well, the meetings, we've been calling the meetings, and I'm not sure why the students have not, but we've been having meetings on Thursdays, so I'm not sure why the students have not been.
Right, the same thing happened with enrollment management. There's some sort of communication breakdown somewhere. But because we're appointing people, and I guess it's just not getting through.
Well, Ashley's been aware of this, so I'm not sure.
Can we, I know, can we get a copy of the midterm report to students as soon as possible?
Yeah, definitely the version, well, Alex will get one, but the version that ends up going to the board will certainly provide that to the AS. And there'll be time to tweak it up a little bit even after the board approves it. So that's kind of our method of operation, if you will.
I just know I'm a little personally uncomfortable with an accreditation report going through if it hasn't been gone through each of the shared governance groups, since that's one of the main accreditation standards.
Okay.
Obviously leverage the web wherever it's appropriate.
Right, exactly.
As opposed to distributing lots of...
Right. And we, up on our accreditation website is where the document will be placed and that so forth. And talking about that, many of you will notice a new look on the front page of the college's website, whereupon we are working hard towards the notion of transparency and communication, and you'll see that there's information up there on the Spring Forward. There's information up there on the front page regarding the budget situation. There is something I think called transparency or something or other, where every one of these meetings defined as all of our shared governance meetings that are being videotaped right now, will be placed on that website. And all documentation that is significant, such as the enrollment management report that we did earlier today, and other things are going to be posted up there. So if you want to know further information quickly, certainly within a week, you're going to notice a lot of additional items being posted up on that site. Dave?
Yeah, on that, can you find out for me if we have to sign a release form for this videotape?
No. Brown Night meetings being open, you have to allow any video and audio recording. There's no exception.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Now I need to go back to one other item. We didn't actually solidify who the committee would be to help with the emergency plan of public advocacy. So I think maybe what I'll do is I'll work with the presidents of the Academic Senate, Classified Senate, and Ashley, the Associated Students, and Dave, the Management Association, and try and get a committee pulled together that way unless we have volunteers at the table who would be willing to take that on. Okay, seeing none, I'll approach it in that manner. Okay, I want to remind everybody that our next meeting, are there any announcements that anybody around the table would like to make? Simon?
Yeah, just a couple. Associated students, obviously we approved a resolution that went before the Board of Trustees last week, and one of the elements of that was shared governance. We just want to make sure, we'd like to announce it here, that we hope that all decisions that happen that are of major importance to the 9+1 area go through the associated students in some way, shape or form, probably through committees of the College Council. And also, I know we've talked a lot about Brown Act, and I'd just like to announce that it's available online if you're actually interested in what it says. It's Government Code 54950. 54950. It's a very easy read, and it should clarify really a lot of our obligations under the Brown Act and just what that means. Our final announcement is that if you agree, there are guaranteed seats for staff members on the March and March plane if you agree to be technically advisors to the trip, which means just helping to check in with the student captains, make sure everyone's gathered together. If you do that, you will be guaranteed a spot. If you don't do that, but you still want to go, then Carrie said that she'll take you after the students. But if you want one of the guaranteed 10, and there are still spaces, then please go ahead and sign up as an advisor. And you can talk, and she's still
Through
in
Carrie.
the office.
Through Carrie, right.
Yeah.
So, and then going back to your first comment, just sort of remind everybody, the College Council as a council has 3 AS representatives, and every one of our standing committees has student representatives. And as far as the accreditation midterm report, per the policy on accreditation, it has representation. So what we do is we communicate through the AS president normally, and then the AS goes about filling these seats. And then the conveners of our standing committees each have the responsibility of contacting all the groups that are represented on their standing committee makeup and seeking the membership for those standing committees.
I'll just clarify, the resolution actually specifically referred to the section cuts. And the only reason I bring it up is because I feel it's appropriate that moving forward, AS is very clear that those sorts of actions, at least we would appreciate having it. The informatory through.
Well, now you have 2 members on the enrollment management
We
committee.
do, and hopefully one
And
more
next
time.
the next agenda, you might get 3. So we'll go from there.
Fantastic.
All right. Any other announcements, Dave?
Do I need to contact this Karen or?
Carrie Afuso. She's in the flea market office. cmafuso@pasadena.edu, or you can just walk over to the office of Student Affairs. She's there.
Further announcements? Okay, so now I'll say that the next meeting of the College Council will be, and we'll post it, Tuesday, March 6th at 8:30 in the morning in this room for 15 minutes to vote on the tax initiative support issue. The following meeting will be on March 28th, 2012 in Creveling Lounge. We are going to move as many of the College Council meetings as we possibly can to Creveling. But at the moment, you'll see at the bottom, the April 25th and May 23rd are here in 233, unless we can get what's in Creveling relocated. So either Creveling or the Circadian for sure, but that's what we're going to try to do is move these into larger spaces in case more people want to participate. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Dave.
I'll move.
Second. Simon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.